Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Jeff Culbert from Schooley's Mountain Chiropractic Center, and welcome to my video. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about bringing you up to date on the current state of affairs as it pertains to COVID at this stage of the game in the United States. So Schooley's Mountain Chiropractic Center, we went over this a couple of weeks ago, has a team affirmation that we say every day, and I thought it was important enough to put it up on our wall so patients know what we're talking about. So at Schooley's Mountain Chiropractic Center, our primary goal is to get you well, keep you well with a lifetime of care and service, and always guide you in the right direction. So I think it's important today to touch base on what's going on with COVID and all of the crazy hysteria that still seems to be going on. Currently, we are experiencing what is known as Omicron Ba-5, and they have named this now affectionately Ninja COVID. So why the name Ninja? Because as COVID has gone on and morphed from the wild variant to the alpha variant to Delta, and then ultimately last December and January to Omicron 1, then Omicron 2, and then we had a little bout of Ba-4, okay, and now we are currently in Ba-5 Omicron. Statistically, from what I've gathered, especially from Jack Campbell in England, who does a daily report on COVID, Ba-5 now, statistically, 14 out of 15 people are going to be exhibiting extremely mild symptoms. And the symptoms are pretty much the basic four. You're going to have a headache, you're going to have a slight sniffle, you're going to have a little bit of a scratchy throat, and you're going to be fatigued. Now, when I was a kid growing up, that meant like allergies, common cold. It was really not a big deal. And Ba-5 for 14 out of 15 people statistically is not going to be a big deal. You're generally going to be over this particular mild variant within 2 to 3 days. Now, the thing we have to talk about also is what happens to that 15th person, or that 1 out of 15. Typically, they're going to have more like the Ba-1 symptoms. They're going to have a little bit more of a fever. They're going to have that heavy head congestion versus just a little mild congestion. They're going to have that glass razor blade that's in the throat. There's going to be more chest congestion and maybe some coughing and the traditional joint aches and pains. And just like Omicron 1, it typically is going to be statistically about 5 to 7 days for you to get over that. The other thing that you have to remember now, because there's still a lot of talk, go out and get the vaccine. The vaccine was originally designed for the wild variant. It has never been updated for the alpha variant and the delta variant. And when we got to Omicron, Omicron had genetic markers that made Omicron totally resistant to alpha, wild, and delta variant prior exposure, as well as resistant to the vaccine. So Omicron, you had no protection from the Delta, Alpha, or Wild, or the vaccinations, which is why so many people were getting breakthrough infections, and so many of us got it. Now we're into Ba-5, and Ba-5, again, is genetically different from Omicron 1 and 2. It is now resistant to prior exposure to Omicron 1, Omicron 2, Alpha, Delta, as well as the wild variant, as well as being resistant to the never updated vaccine. Now, reportedly, when we were getting into Omicron 2, Pfizer was coming up with an Omicron variant vaccination. And that was supposed to be released sometime from March 15th to June 1st. And as far as I know, as of this date, it has not been released. So they're pushing boosters and vaccinations for a bug that is no longer in our realm or in our sphere. So if you're thinking about getting boosted, you're thinking of getting vaccinated, I will never tell you not to. But when you think of all of the serious side effects that have been exhibited, especially in our youth, such as myocarditis, blood clots, strokes, you name it, there's a lot of severe side effects. In fact, the Pfizer papers were forced to be released under the Freedom of Information Act. There is roughly 1,300 side effects that you need to be aware of, which are available online that you can download. So just do a Google search on Pfizer papers. And then again, you'll be able to see what is the list of 1,300 side effects from the original vaccine that you need to be aware of. For me, if I know that something is not going to be currently effective, I'm more than likely not going to put that into my body, especially since this is more of an experimental vaccine as opposed to a true vaccine like when I grew up as a kid. So this is the current state of affairs. Ba-5 is there. It is known as Ninja COVID. Most people don't realize that they have it. And for the 1 out of the 15 that does get it, you're going to have a little bit more symptoms like you did in the very beginning of Omicron. Also remember, no protection from prior exposure with this, which makes me lead to think that Omicron now, as well as COVID in general, has now entered the realm of being like the annual flu. The flu that we'll be experiencing this year will be the 104th edition of the 1918 pandemic flu. We generally don't think much about it. We know it's coming every year. The problem that we have with Omicron and COVID at this stage of the game is the fact that we don't know how often these variants that are going to be resistant to prior exposure and prior bug is going to come around. Currently, it seems to be about every 3 to 6 months we have something that is occurring that is resistant. The fortunate thing, while it is still highly contagious, each generation seems to be getting less and less and less virulent. So until that changes, you can hang your head on that as well. So that's the current state of COVID. I think it's important that you understand where we stand right now, because there's still a lot of mass hysteria. When I'm seeing patients in my practice, somebody comes down with COVID, it's like it's the plague all over again. And at this stage of the game, it's really not. Cooler heads should prevail. If you do test positive, 2 to 3 days, be careful, retest, make sure that you're negative before you go out and resume activity in our society. If it is a little bit more severe, you know you're going to be 5 to 7 days. Again, wait a couple of days, retest. Once you're negative, go back out and enjoy yourself. Don't panic. This is not a big deal at this stage of the game, in my professional opinion. Thank you very much. If you found this information useful and helpful, please hit like and subscribe. And if you have any other questions, just visit our website, smcc4u.com, and please shoot us an email through there. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon.